A little bit over a year ago, I went out of town for some special lectures, and I was told about a young man, a graduate of our seminary, a man that I myself had in class a number of years ago, who had gotten out of the ministry and was standing more or less on the fringes of Christian life and testimony. And although I was not given any details about his personal case, I was made to understand that for a period of years he was convinced that God had been leading him in a certain direction. He was persuaded that God had given him certain unmistakable signs confirming that leading, but when it came right down to the crunch, whatever it was he was looking for either didn't happen or didn't materialize, and he was tremendously discouraged by this, and he thought God had let him down. And at that time, at least, he was living in spiritual defeat. And somehow or other, the idea has arisen in our circles that whenever we make a significant spiritual decision, we need some specific and somewhat nebulous mystical guidance from God before we are able to make that decision. And yet, as I search the pages of the Scriptures, I find that the New Testament gives no substantial support to that concept whatsoever. Now, I know that somebody's going to quote to me Colossians 3:15, "Let the peace of God rule in your heart." But if you examine the context of that passage, you will find that the Apostle Paul is talking about our interpersonal relationships with other Christians. And a spirit of peace is to govern our hearts in regard to our dealings with other believers. And it has nothing whatsoever to do with the question of divine guidance. There is, however, divine guidance very clearly in the Scriptures. But it is not the kind of divine guidance that we are usually talking about. When Philip the evangelist was preaching in Samaria, he did not suddenly get the vague impression that his ministry at Samaria was through, and that somehow or other God was calling him to a desert ministry. Instead, we read that an angel of the Lord spoke to him, saying, "Philip, get up, go south along the road that leads from Jerusalem to Gaza." And when he got there and saw a chariot passing, he did not draw the conclusion, maybe this is why God sent me to the desert. Once again, God said to him by the Spirit, "Philip, go join yourself to that chariot."